little while back, I made a video called Why This Military Sci-Fi Series is Unmatched. It's where I reviewed books 1 through 3.5 of the Expeditionary Force series. It got a respectable number of views, so I'm basically a household name now. But I had to come back and talk about it again because I just blazed through books 4 and 5, and my love for this series has only deepened. I'm more convinced than ever that in a galaxy packed with cosmic threats and god-tier aliens, the most powerful force isn't some superweapon. It's the hilarious and surprisingly deep friendship between a regular guy and an ancient, arrogant AI named Skippy. And yes, his name is Skippy. But how does a series about a talking beer can get the complexities of friendship and artificial intelligence so perfectly right without ever taking itself too seriously? For years, sci-fi has been our playground for what-ifs about artificial intelligence. There's been dystopian overlords like Skynet, the tragically flawed androids like Data, and cosmic intellects that see humanity as an ant farm. We've been taught to see AI as either a threat or a tool. But in that search for the next existential crisis, we've mostly skipped over a much more interesting and maybe even more realistic question, like what if a super intelligent AI was just a jerk? An insufferable, brilliant, attention-seeking, and profoundly lonely jerk. That's the exact question at the heart of Craig Allison's Expeditionary Force series, and the answer is one of the most compelling and genuinely moving relationships in modern sci-fi. In this spoiler-free review, I'm not going to be ruining the incredible plot twist. Instead, I'm going to be going over the magic that is Expeditionary Force. We'll get into the iconic banter between Colonel Joe Bishop and the ancient AI Skippy. We'll explore the surprisingly detailed science that Skippy explains with all the patience of a god trying to teach calculus to a hamster. And most importantly, we'll look at how their unique relationship pulls you deeper into the story, making you laugh until you cry one moment and feel their burdens the next moment. This is the story of how a series about a dirty monkey and his beer can gets AI and friendship perfectly right. Before we get to the solution, you have to appreciate the size of the problem. And with Expeditionary Force, the problem is galactic. Picture Earth as an uncontacted tribe on a tiny island in the middle of a vast, bustling ocean. We spent all of history thinking that we're the center of the universe. We fought our wars. We've built our civilizations, and we've looked at the stars, never guessing that the ocean around us is teeming with life. Then one day the ships arrive, and the first book is titled Columbus Day. And this name is a deliberate and brutal metaphor. This isn't the story of enlightened first contact. It mirrors the historical arrival of Christopher Columbus in the Americas. A technologically superior force stumbles upon a new world and immediately sees it as property. The indigenous population, in this case all of humanity, is not seen as a people to be negotiated with, but as savages to be exploited and an obstacle to be removed. The aliens here aren't to share their wisdom, but to fight over us, initiating a slaughter with technology that makes our best weapons look like sharpened sticks. This is the stage where Expeditionary Force opens. Humanity isn't the plucky resistance that finds a clever weak spot in the mothership by any means. We are hopelessly outmatched. This series sets up a universe with a rigid power structure, and at the top are ancient species who've been warring for eons, and I'm speaking longer than humanity has even existed. Below them are their client species, or species that don't have as much technology as them and don't have a hope in hell in beating them. And then it goes on and on in that order, in a galactic pyramid scheme of conflict. Humanity doesn't just start at the bottom here, we're several rungs below it, and in this series on blunt terms, we are the monkeys. And our protagonist, Joe Bishop, is the ultimate monkey. He's not a brilliant scientist or a chosen one, he's a grunt. A regular soldier who gets swept up in humanity's disastrous first contact. Joe is our everyman. He's practical and clever, but he's no genius by any means. He's just as likely to be thinking about a cheeseburger as he is about battle tactics. Grounding the protagonist in this way is a crucial choice, and Joe represents us. The UN Expeditionary Force then sends him off-world as cannon fodder for one of the alien superpowers, the Kristang. And then they quickly learn that they can't trust their allies. They end up trapped millions of light years from home and fighting an enemy that they just don't understand. The problem is laid bare here. Humanity's doomed. We don't have the tech, the knowledge, or the power to change our own destiny. The narrative expertly builds this sense of despair. The characters and the reader are desperate for a miracle. They need a game changer, an ace in the hole. And then, on a planet known as Paradise in a dusty closet, Joe actually finds one. It's not a weapon, it's not a prophecy, it's a shiny silver cylinder that looks a lot like a beer can, and it is very, very annoyed. The discovery of Skippy is the single most important moment in the entire series. He's the story's catalyst, its comedy engine, and then at its center, its emotional core. This is an elder AI, and a relic of a precursor race from millions of years ago. Now, if you're a fan of sci-fi gaming like I am, you might be thinking of the Reapers from Mass Effect, an ancient, arrogant machine gods. But instead of a fleet of genocidal starships, this one is stuck by himself. He is, without exaggeration, a god in a can, and he is a magnificent asshole. From their very first conversation, the dynamic is set. The Skippy wakes up from a long and lonely slumber, and his first thought about the human before him is one of pure, unfiltered disgust. He calls Joe a meat sack and a filthy monkey. He suggests Joe address him as the Lord God Almighty, and Joe, in a moment of inspired sarcasm that defines their relationship, rejects shithead and lands on Skippy. The name sticks, and to Skippy's eventual pride, he becomes Skippy the Magnificent. Camera, see? Now, if you can hear something in the background, I'm going to try and use the denoiser, but I'm assuming that this little girl speaks so much that it won't work. This is Georgia. This is who you're hearing. I'm about 20 minutes into this video trying to record myself, and I keep having to retake takes all the time. Because this one talks a lot. But this is the foundation of their friendship, a relentless, non-stop stream of banter. Skippy's insults are legendary, and one moment he'll lament that he could be sitting here until the last star fades away before that mush sack you call a brain generates a worthwhile idea. The next he'll just call Joe a big, stupid doo-doo head. Joe gives as good as he gets, though, mastering the deadpan comeback that punctures Skippy's huge ego. But it's not all comic relief, not in any manner. The humor is how their bond is forged. It's a coping mechanism against impossible odds. It's their language of trust. The ability to relentlessly mock each other is a sign of deep friendship. One of the best examples of their dynamic is when Joe comes up with one of his signature monkey-brained ideas. He'll ask Skippy, "Can we do this?" And Skippy's immediate response is almost always, "That is the stupidest idea I've ever heard in my millions of years of existence." He'll go on a long, technical rant about why it's impossible, and then after a dramatic pause, he'll begrudgingly admit that the stupid monkey idea just might work. Skippy's resulting tantrums are comedic gold, but they also reveal a deep respect for Joe's unique mind. The true genius of their relationship, however, shows up when the laughter stops. Beneath the sarcasm, Allinson has built a friendship of profound depth. This isn't a man and his tool, it's two best friends. They rely on each other completely. Skippy, for all his power, is just a can, and he needs Joe and his merry band of pirates to be his hands and feet. Joe, on the other hand, would be dead a million times over without Skippy's awesomeness. Now, I hope you're enjoying my daughter singing, but this mutual dependence forces them into a state of absolute trust. They become each other's sole confidants. There are moments in the series where this bond is tested to its absolute limits, moments of genuine fear, loss, and sacrifice. Skippy, despite his complaints, will move heaven and earth to protect Joe and his crew. He develops a fierce, personal loyalty to his monkeys. Their bond becomes the story's emotional anchor. While the friendship is the heart of the series, its brain is the surprisingly detailed approach to science and technology. In a genre that often hand-waves impossible tech, Expeditionary Force takes the time to explain the how and the why. The primary vessel for this, of course, is Skippy himself, acting as the galaxy's most arrogant physics professor. Now, for those of you who have asked for less background noise, I am trying, but I challenge you to get a 3-year-old girl to stop talking. I assure you it is quite impossible. But back to the topic at hand, Skippy's abilities are vast, but author Craig Allenson cleverly grounds them in plausible, if advanced, scientific principles. When Skippy does the impossible, he almost explains how he does the impossible. Allenson clearly did his homework here, blending concepts of quantum mechanics, relativity, and wormhole theory. For instance, Skippy's ability to create micro wormholes, it's not just magic. He explains the energy requirements, the space-time metrics, and the limitations that he has. This attention to detail extends to all tech. Ship-to-ship combat isn't just flashy dogfights. It's a game of orbital mechanics and sensor ranges. When the cruise ship, the Flying Dutchman, is damaged, they have to scavenge parts, and Skippy has to figure out how to jury rig incompatible technologies. Skippy's lectures are a key feature. He'll go on long tangents about Elder Starship mechanics or theoretical physics, and this is where the series' genius for accessibility shines. For example, Skippy might launch into a highly technical explanation of how he's going to create a micro wormhole by manipulating space-time with negative mass energy. He'll throw out terms that sound like they're straight out of a physics textbook, but just as your eyes start to glaze over, the narration will then switch back to Joe's perspective, who will internally summarize it as, so Skippy was going to poke a tiny, temporary hole in the universe. Gotcha. This technique is brilliant. It gives science the real weight for the hard sci-fi fans, but it also uses Joe's layman perspective to keep the story moving and ensure everyone understands the stakes, all without dumbing it down. Even Skippy's own nature as an AI is subject to these rules. He has restraining bolts that are a source of constant frustration and narrative tension. These rules force Joe and the crew to be active participants rather than just passengers on the Skippy Express. By dedicating so much time to science, the Expeditionary Force becomes more than just a simple space adventure. While Joe and Skippy are the stars, a two-man act can only go so far. What truly brings the world of Expeditionary Force to life is the supporting cast, the crew of the starship the Flying Dutchman, better known as the Merry Band of Pirates. And I've found that the best fictional teams are often total disasters on paper, and this crew is a textbook example of a found family. This crew isn't just background dressing, they're a vital, dysfunctional, and fiercely loyal family. Originally a ragtag group of soldiers who followed Joe on a near suicidal mission, they evolve into one of the most elite fighting forces in the galaxy. They're made up of Tier 1 operators from Special Forces units from around the globe. There's Navy SEALs, British SAS, and much, much more. Each key member serves a purpose. There's Staff Sergeant Margaret Adams, a tough-as-nails Marine. There's Chang, his loyal second-in-command, and Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Sims, the practical logistics officer who often acts as a counterbalance to Joe's impulsiveness. The list goes on, from the unflappable British SAS Major Jeremy Smith, who views their insane missions as just another Tuesday, to Dr. Mark Friedlander, the scientist who perpetually is convinced that he's about to be eaten. The dynamic between the crew and Skippy is especially brilliant. They endure his arrogance but have immense respect for his genius. In turn, Skippy develops a strange proprietary fondness for the crew. He even has a sub-mind named Agatha Christie, who acts as a kindly aunt to the crew, often nagging Skippy to be nicer, hence the name Nagatha. These relationships amplify the humor and the tension. Joe leads with a men-first philosophy, taking responsibility for every single failure and earning a fierce loyalty. They trust him, and because they trust him, they're willing to follow him in his talking beer can into the jaws of death. And they do this time and time again. This isn't just a collection of soldiers, it's a group that's bound by shared trauma and a desperate purpose, forging a loyalty far stronger than any military hierarchy. Alright, so if you're enjoying this look into the universe of Expeditionary Force and the glorious dynamic between a filthy monkey and his arrogant beer can, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. It really does help the channel, and if you want more spoiler-free takes on the best science fiction, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. Now, I have a question for all of you though, and I want to see your answers down in the comments section. Who is your favorite artificial intelligence character of all of science fiction, and why are they your favorite? Is it a benevolent guide, a terrifying villain, a quirky sidekick? Let me know who it is and what makes them so memorable. I'm genuinely curious to see what y'all come up with. So, we've got a central friendship that's both hilarious and moving, a foundation of hard science, and a compelling supporting cast. But the real magic of Expeditionary Force is how these elements combine to create an incredibly addictive experience. The problem solution structure drives the plot, with each book presenting a new, seemingly impossible threat. This creates a relentless page turning pace. Some might say that this leads to a repetitive formula. A crisis emerges, Skippy declares they're doomed, and Joe comes up with a crazy idea to save the day. But that totally misses the point. The plot formula is just a framework for character development. The joy isn't just seeing them solve a problem, but in how they do it, through bickering, ingenuity, and unwavering trust. The series succeeds because it perfectly balances its tones. It's a fun, escapist adventure with dialogue that crackles with wit. Yet it never shies away from the grim realities of war. There are consequences. This blend of light and dark, high stakes action and lowbrow humor creates a rich emotional landscape. It can make you laugh out loud on one page and then grip your seat with tension on the next page. So, who is this series actually for anyway? Well, if you love the witty banter and found family dynamic of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, the relationship between Joe, Skippy, and the merry band of pirates will feel like coming home. If you appreciate the military grit and detailed physics of a series like The Expanse, you'll find a lot of love in Allison's world building and tactical space battles. And if you're a fan of ancient alien mysteries and creative problem solving in shows like Stargate SG-1, the premise of uncovering elder technology to outsmart powerful aliens might be right up your alley. Expeditionary Force hits a sweet spot for a wide range of sci-fi fans. It's got something for everybody. It's accessible enough for newcomers, but deep enough for seasoned veterans. It's a series that understands that the greatest space adventures are ultimately about the people and the AIs who undertake them. In the vast expanse of sci-fi, we've seen countless visions of the future, but rarely has a series captured the messy, complicated, and hilarious potential for humanity's place in the cosmos like Expeditionary Force. It presents a galaxy that is not just wondrous but fundamentally absurd, a galaxy where godlike AIs can be cripplingly insecure, and the fate of a species can actually rest on a well-timed sarcastic comment. The series is a testament to the power of character. The bond between Joe Bishop and Skippy the Magnificent is more than just a plot device, it's a series soul. It's a friendship born of desperation, forged in sarcasm, and solidified by a loyalty that transcends species and the vast emptiness of space. Through their eyes, we experience a universe that is both terrifying and hilarious. We are reminded that sometimes the best response to overwhelming power is not defiance, but irreverence. Expeditionary Force is a masterclass in blending humor with action and hard science with heartfelt emotion. It walks the tightrope between being an epic space opera and an intimate story about two best friends. It really raises the bar. Get it? Because he's in a can. So, if you're looking for a series that will make you laugh, think, and genuinely care, look no further. Trust the awesomeness. In a universe full of cosmic threats, the most powerful force is a dirty monkey in his beer can, and their story is one you won't soon forget.